So this is an interesting question. Most of what I read indicates that to maximize your gains in the weight room, you need to make sure to get adequate rest. But what is adequate? If I play pickup or league on an off day, how much am I hurting my weight room training versus practicing my ultimate skills and keeping some level of conditioning? How would you design an optimal week during various phases of the off-season and preseason? Okay, that last part is a very involved question, but maybe we will kind of address the first part. How much rest do you need to maximize your gains in the weight room? And what can you do to maintain your conditioning while you're focusing on your strength gains?
Well, I think this is a very relative question because we don't know how old Dave is. We don't know how much sleep he's getting. We don't know, is he taking fish oils? Is he ice bathing? Is he stretching and foam rolling, taking care of his tissue quality? Like, what is this guy doing to recover? Mm-hmm. You know, and if his idea of recovery is, you know, not getting much sleep and, you know, going out to the bar and doing all these things, you know, after he lifts or after he plays pickup, then he's going to have a lot harder time. If he's young and has good recovery methods, I don't see any problem with, you know, being able to lift 3 times a week in the off season, and then also play 2 nights a week of pickup. But that's also relative to how much, how hard his pickup is. What I would say is I think that there's got to be a really distinct time, like a 3-month period. In the off season that you could play pickup, but like you got to decide what is my focus. If it's the off season, I've got to focus on strength, and that's going to take a lot of my energy. So rather than going out and playing pickup and giving everything you have, maybe just stay back and handle or play less points, and then really devote your energy to the weight room. And then when it comes, preseason, you need to do more, and your strength is already there, and you're just trying to maintain strength and maybe convert it to power. That would be the time that maybe you could start spending a little more time on grinding on the field.
Right. Yeah, I think it's really important to pick a focus and be really strategic about what it is you're doing when you have so many competing demands. And this question is similar to a question we got from Eric Boseman. So his question was also about weight training cardio. He's also been trying to put on muscle and weight for performance and ultimate. And so his question is similar. Is my rigorous ultimate schedule, pick up in league 2 or 3 times a week and a tournament at least once a month, is that getting in the way of my weight gains? And is there a way to counteract those negative effects? So I think both these questions have similar answers. If you're going to be pushing yourself that hard, you not only need to have a training plan, you also need to have a recovery plan. What are you doing between the workouts to get yourself ready for the next one? Especially in the off season, if your primary goal is to increase your strength and put on weight, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. You gotta know that's your primary goal, and then everything else has to be a little bit secondary. Now, it doesn't mean you can't ever play ultimate in the off season. I think that is important to throw all that. You can never throw too much, right? So I think it's important to keep those skills up, but you do need to have a recovery plan if you're going to be pushing yourself that hard. The other part of Eric's question is about cardio training, about how it slows down or impedes weight training, and I think that there's kind of a misconception about what qualifies as cardio training and what you can do to keep your conditioning up. I think too often we think of cardio as going out for a long run or doing activities for a long period of time at kind of a low intensity. And I think that we need to kind of scrap that idea that that's what's going to be best for our cardio. I think if you're playing pickup 2 or 3 times a week, especially if you play pickup for like an hour, maybe like a higher intensity, I think that's going to be plenty to maintain your cardio in the off season as you're also in the weight room. I don't think that you need to do any additional long distance running. And I think that would be kind of like that would be my strategy. I don't think you want to go out and play constantly be playing 4 hours every 2 days while your main priority is strength training. But I think it is good to go out for an hour and play or do sprints or something to maintain your cardio. What do you think about that strategy?
Well, I mean, what is cardio? Cardio is a prefix for heart, right? Essentially, when somebody mentions cardiovascular exercise, like weight training can be cardiovascular exercise. Like anything that elevates your heart rate is cardiovascular exercise. So, but I think that as a whole, when I think of cardio, I think of what we call LSD training, which is long, slow distance, which means that your heart rate is staying relatively moderate, and you're doing it for a long time. So going and running a 5K or going for a 2-mile run or all this stuff. And I think that all that is completely irrelevant in Ultimate. I think that this is an explosive sport. I think that training slow makes you slow. I think that conventional cardio training will make you slow. Triathlons in the off season will make you slow. I think you just have to decide as yourself as an athlete, do I want to be an explosive Ultimate player? And if you do, well then I don't see any reason to ever run over 400 yards. We need to start thinking about high intensity interval training, meaning we're going to do sprints with change of direction and get our heart rate really elevated, and then see how fast that could come down to the level that we want it to, and then do that again, and then let the body adapt to that over time. So 150 shuttles, 300 shuttles, all these things are a much better way to think about the conditioning portion. Like, gone are the days of cardio, especially with this AUDL and like this kind of the different ways that we're showcasing Ultimate at this point. It's coming to the point that it's only one hardcore game or two hardcore games during the week, and that obviously your strategies for cardio, for conditioning, are going to be different for 1 hour and a half explosive effort versus coming out and playing Florida style Ultimate where they're playing the same 9 guys for 8 games on a weekend. Like, there's got to be different strategies.
Well, that gets into, I think, our next question, which is conveniently next. So this is from Kirk. He's a mixed player currently between teams, but so his question is, what is the right level of cardio for Ultimate? So we kind of answered that a little bit. But on one hand, Ultimate's very much an explosive sport, like we said. But on the other hand, 8 games in a weekend is certainly something that requires endurance. He says, when I'm on a good running plan, I know I feel like I can play 100% longer over the course of the weekend, but I'm not sure if this is because I'm just in better shape generally. When doing my own conditioning, I've tried to split the weights cardio 50-50, but I suspect that might be underemphasizing the anaerobic. What's the optimal level of cardio to be doing? So should I be focusing entirely on weights, plyos, and track workouts and leaving out the distance running altogether? Well, I think we answered that last part. Like, yeah, I think you should be leaving out the distance running altogether, in my opinion. Yeah, so I mean, this is what makes Ultimate tricky to train for. It is an explosive sport, but you are playing for long weekends the way most, we're not all playing in the AUDL where we get one game. We're having to play multiple games at once. So I think, instead of thinking about this as cardiovascular endurance, we got to think about this as strength endurance and power endurance and train for that. It's not the same thing as cardiovascular endurance, and you don't train for it the same way. Do you want to add to that or expound upon that?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that's great.
Yeah, so training for power endurance and strength endurance, especially strength endurance, that is something that you can do in the weight room, working on your local muscle endurance and doing the types of intervals that you're talking about, like 150 shuttle intervals. That's a way that you work on your sprint endurance, so that you can sprint and recover and repeat. That's what you want to be able to do in order to last the whole weekend long. Not an easy task, but it's doable if you train for it properly. You
know what we can do? We can put a link right here to the 10 cut agility and the 300 shuttle videos on my YouTube, so that people can see what kind of the best conditioning drills are. And with those drills, it's just one of those things that the body will adapt to stimulus. So it's like, I could maybe run it. If you watch this 10 cut agility drill, it's like, man, run it. You go out there and try it. You do 4 of those, and you're done. You're on the ground. But the body adapts, and the next week you might be able to do it rather than 90 seconds rest. You may be able to do it 60 seconds rest and push yourself. Then the next week, maybe add 2 reps, and now we're doing 6 reps. And the body adapts. And then next week, maybe we're dropping it down to 45-second rest. The body adapts. And kind of structuring it in kind of a linear fashion like that, and then maybe throwing in a recovery week and trying to figure out exactly where you want to peak in conditioning. I think that's the best strategy to really be the most fit at the right time.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting about doing high-intensity interval training is, first of all, kind of how beginner level you have to start, and then also how quickly you do adapt. Because, I mean, I look at some of the workouts I do now, and I think, if I had known that I would have to do that workout at some point, I might have never gotten started. I mean, it seems insane. But if you, so like for, you know, when I talk about my lateral workouts and stuff, I constantly say, you know, start out at 4 reps. Start out where it's doable. And don't worry about where you're trying to get to, because your body will adapt, and it will adapt more quickly, I think, than you realize in some ways. But you also have to start at a level that you can handle and recover from, and so that you can continue to win your workouts day after day.